is just sort of the last section, and we're kind of just keen to kind of draw the dots as to how we took some of the tools from our innovation program into this digital equity space, because we sort of acknowledged, I guess, that the digital equity landscape is a really complex challenge, and there were sort of two key reasons for that, which sort of meant that human-centered design, systems thinking in our whole innovation program was sort of really well placed to be able to use those tools to get better outcomes, and they really helped to inform the digital equity framework, which was great. So the two sort of main reasons that we sort of saw that it was a complex challenge was that one size didn't fit all. We acknowledged that everyone's digital experiences were different, and that require varying interventions as well. And the other part is that the digital landscape is evolving at a rapid rate. So expectations on these experiences are growing. And so we need to be able to adapt. We can't just put a framework at a point in time and think that it's going to be ready and fine for 4 years. So within the City of Casey, more broadly to digital equity, we have created sort of an innovation process that uses best practice, systems thinking, design thinking, and human-centered design, as well as experimentation and prototyping, so that we can kind of move from problem to solution through a validated process. So what we've done to bring this process to life, we've got an innovation program where we've got capability and training as part of that. So every quarter we have teams run through a 6-week, they get 10% time out of their week to be able to innovate and look at these complex challenges. So we had Seb and Matthew from the Inclusion Wellbeing team come through the innovation bootcamp process, and they stepped through the discovery phase, which was really sort of focusing on how do we understand the system as a whole, identify the issues, understand the actors, the relationships that they have, and then also some of those sort of mega trends or what's really impacting that lived experience. Then move through to the design phase, where we sort of really quarantine or put in an area that we really want to focus in on, and we look at that specific human need. And that was really important for us because we acknowledged that everyone had very different experiences when it came to digital equity. In the experimentation phase, we had some ideas that we wanted to test. So we got out there, they get out there in the real world and have opportunities to talk to the community members, to talk to partners and vendors, and really sort of see outside of that lab environment what it actually means. And then the last one, which is the most important phase for us and can often be the forgotten piece in the good old innovation space, is the embed phase. So that's the implementation, it's change management, it's bringing it into the business as usual space. That means that it can have that ongoing life as well, but taking all of those mindsets into that BAU activity as well. So just because it goes into business as usual doesn't mean that we can't continue to iterate and build on it and put the community at the center of everything that we do. So some of the innovation tools that we used to develop the digital equity framework, I'm not going to go through all of them today, but I will sort of just talk through our digital empowerment paper, our customer journey maps and personas, and some of the workshops that we did, and then a bit about the user testing that we did at the end. So that helped us to really, understand the problem, and then sort of diverge and converge, go out and design ideas, get diverse ideas from as many people as we could, then bring them in, test them out in the real world, and then come up with a solution, which in this case was a digital equity lab that had traces of all of these innovation tools in them. So to kind of put it into practice, you can look at it as diamonds, you can look at it as circles, but at the end of the day, innovation really needs to start with people and data. Then that generates insights, that then generates testing opportunities, that then generates more insights, and then we go back to people, and that we keep that iterative approach going, because one of the big things that we found in innovation is that our community want to partner with us on solving problems. They don't just want to highlight the problems, but they want to sort of have their voice throughout the shaping of solutions, and deeply understanding problems as well. So all of this is really a fancy way of us saying, and then we spoke to people and we understood it and we validated it with data, and we managed our assumptions through this process. So in the discover phase, that first diamond that I was sort of talking through, we did some systems mapping where we sort of looked at the different policies, the processes and platforms that are all a part of the ecosystem that either enable people to be digitally included or digitally excluded. And as part of that, we also understood these sort of mega trends around, how are social media platforms impacting the quality of life for community members? Just because people have access, affordability, and digital ability, does that mean that they're living the best life that they can? So we really wanted to unpack that. So we did a digital empowerment paper that sort of looks at those key challenges and opportunities, but also what the policy response could look like in this landscape, and what the role of the City of Casey is versus what the role of other partners is. So that really gave us that broad understanding of this is the landscape we're operating in. And that's available online. So if anyone's interested, I'd highly encourage you to have a bit of a read and have a think about how some of these bigger trends are playing out in your communities as well. And as we sort of defined or got into the discover phase, we really needed some key anchor points to help us, because through the innovation program and through the process, it can be really overwhelming and you don't have all of the answers. And I remember Seb and Matthew were just, often quite like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? I don't know what's going to happen next. And the amazing Adam and Alex, who sort of coached our teams through the innovation program, were able to sort of give them the boundaries to innovate in, so that then they could, teams could really unpack it and learn at the right point, because innovation can be quite overwhelming. And I think one of the big things out of this is that you don't have to be a design thinking purist to be able to innovate in your communities. It's about being able to leverage the tools that are out there. There's so many things online to be able to have better, richer, deeper conversations with your community that can then translate into information that can be used in reporting, in new programs, and that sort of a thing. So the three anchor points that we really had were the definitions. So we defined digital empowerment and digital equity. We looked at the data. So as Indigo did a great job before of showing the digital inclusion index, we also looked at lived experience data and ABS data as well. And then we also wanted to make sure that we had our anchor points on the demographics. We needed to understand who we were solving for and understand the stories and the experiences that really impact the digital exclusion. We didn't want to just put them in a box and say that's your experience. We wanted to be able to have those that understanding before we jumped in too deep. So then we moved into the design phase where we did some sort of customer journey maps. We did some ideation workshops, co-design workshops, and we also did some focus groups with a range of community members, but also community service organisations who deal with digital exclusion and people who are dealing with it on a regular basis. So their insights were super, super helpful for us to be able to reflect that in the digital equity framework. So just quickly, customer journey maps is probably something that quite a few of you would be familiar with. But what we did is we did some journey maps from a range of different cohorts to see what are similar and different experiences that they may have. And that helped us to then sort of form the personas. What we wanted to do also was understand the touch points of what a journey might look like for someone who is wanting to use free public Wi-Fi within the City of Casey, or if someone has just arrived at the City of Casey and doesn't really know how to navigate around the geographical boundaries or the digital boundaries as well. So there were a lot of different journeys that we looked at, and then we also brought different cohorts into that as well. So those journey maps then informed our sort of personas, and that helped us to, as I sort of said, see the similarities and differences around the lived experiences of different cohorts within Doveton in particular, but also within the City of Casey. I want to caveat that personas can be a bit of a challenge. We would often have quite heated debates within the innovation team, is that especially for such a complex issue like digital equity, personas are often not representative of the cohorts that they're representing, because everyone's experiences can be quite different, but they do give a good sort of mark in the ground of the sorts of experiences that people might have. But leaning into personas, we need to make sure that our assumptions are always being tested, that we're also making sure that we're not just doing broad brush strokes of what people's experiences are, and making sure that stories and experiences are central to the design process. During the design phase as well, we did design charrettes. So we used Lotus diagrams, we did other sort of ideation workshops that were led by Seb and others as well, to kind of understand what different ideas we could come up with challenge statements that we'd already developed. And that was a really great way to have diverse stakeholders in a group together, in a room together, and building on each other's ideas. So I think I was in a couple of them where we'd bring people in from across the organisation, and people who hadn't really been deep in the knowledge of what we'd been doing in the innovation program, but coming up with fresh ideas and building on the ideas and experiences, as well as what was these sort of similar ideation workshops that happened outside of the organisation as well. So they were a really important way for us to kind of get diverse ideas, and then we went through a phase of then zeroing in on what were the sort of areas that we really wanted to solve for, and what were the ideas that we wanted to start to test. And then we sort of got into that experimentation phase. And as Seb sort of said before, the team was super lucky to sort of pick a window where we could actually get out on the ground, and we weren't all confined to our virtual lives. So the team went out to Autumn Place in Doveton and did sort of user testing. So Matthew did a lot of great observational testing, and just sort of saw how people were using space and how space impacted people's abilities to use digital channels. So one of the things we were looking at was rolling out free public Wi-Fi inside, but also outside Autumn Place. And we didn't want to just roll it out for the sake of it. We wanted to get insights around how could you activate it and actually get people online using it with confidence. And some of the insights that I thought were really fab that Seb and Matthew found was that there was a real need for privacy and a sense of security in these physical spaces. Often they're really open environments, which is great. But if you're, FaceTiming your loved ones back home, you're doing a Centrelink form, you're trying to do online banking, all of these sorts of things, which are things that people said that they would use the Wi-Fi for. You don't want to be doing that in a completely open space where someone can walk past you. So looking at how we can create those safe and secure spaces was a really important thing that we hadn't really thought about before. We just had a created and they will come sort of a mindset to free public Wi-Fi. And another big insight was that we needed better signage in more languages so that people could know that it was available, know how to get connected and how to get online. So there were some really good, some of them were like, oh, we probably should have thought of that, but being able to be immersed in the space generated some really great insights for the team. So they were just a couple of the tools, I guess, that the team used and that we promote within the City of Casey as part of our innovation program. I think the most important thing for this, especially around digital equity, people can often just jump to the technology solution. We need more digital platforms. We need more free public Wi-Fi so that people can get online. The innovation and taking a human-centered approach helped us to put the community at the center of it, not the technology solution. It ensured that the community's voice wasn't just at a point in time, but it was throughout the development. So it was always great to sort of see how the team were getting insights from the community. Then that was feeding back into the work that they were doing, and sharing insights, sharing the framework for review. And I think they got like a higher than average response from the community when they asked for review. So it was good to sort of see that building on those engagements, it sort of built that buy-in as well within the community, which was really important. And the innovation program and our process, it provides the structure to allow employees to kind of pick up design thinking and innovation tools quickly. I know that there was a lot of trepidation from a lot of our teams, and Adam and Alex, who sort of facilitate this program, have done an amazing job to build that confidence so that people can pick up a Lotus diagram or pick up a customer journey map and really just start to use it and use it within their communities. And I think that one of the great things that we see from the innovation team, but also the teams across Casey as well, we've got a massive toolkit that Alex created, and that really helps us to give people the opportunities to tailor the innovation tools and program to the needs that they're trying, or the problem that they're trying to solve for. And I definitely saw that the teams were always reflecting on the use of tools, how they could use them differently, how they could use them better, and they're starting to get embedded in the way that we operate within the city of Casey at the moment. So it's building that capability and that confidence to be able, for the next project, to be able to use these as well and put our community at the centre of everything that we do. So just some final tips and tricks and reflections from this process. Definitely the Digital Inclusion Index is such a great starting point to frame the problem. It's really helpful for Seb, Matthew, Alex, and others as well to take that access, affordability, and digital ability as sort of our challenge statements into the community. We took a test and learn approach. So I definitely recommend, if you're thinking of doing a digital equity framework, just put yourselves out there and use these tools to facilitate, discussions. You don't need to be a wizard in this sort of space, but I think it's really important that you don't need to have all the answers. What we sort of found, when partners, community members, and employees all come together, great things happen, new ideas form, and also new friendships and partnerships form, which is really important to drive the impact that we want to see. And lastly, you don't need to be a design thinking purist to be an innovator. Just map the approach. When do you want to be talking to your community? How do you want to be talking to your community, and what tools can help to facilitate those relationships? And I think that it's important to kind of break down those barriers of how can you approach a problem differently, especially for something like digital equity. If we just say, let's roll out free public Wi-Fi everywhere, if people don't end up using it, or there are barriers around language or confidence, then it'll be seen as a failure rather than a space to learn. So there were just a couple of the reflections that we had as a team. And just lastly, I haven't forgotten about the embed phase, which is the last phase. And we're in the process, and if you were on the call previously, the Digital Equity Living Lab, we're launching that. We launched that today, and over the course of the next sort of 3 to 4 months, we're going to be engaging with partners to take a place-based approach to co-creation and innovation. So Autumn Place is going to be transformed into a living lab and a space where we can test, trial new concepts that look at digital access, affordability, and digital ability, and will really help us to make sure that what we're actually putting out there has usability and viability and desirability within the community. So we're really excited about that. If you're interested in potentially being a partner, please do get in touch with us, because it's something that we think would be a really fantastic step and way for us to partner with the community in a meaningful way. So some of the outcomes that we'd love to see from that are those reduced digital exclusion and more meaningful experiences online, and safe experiences online as well. So we've got a website that I think Mandy might put in the chat as well, that people can check out as well.